Good day, friends. I hope you're doing well. I'm Franky, and welcome to the Think Tank. So, there's questions still about Richard Allen, is there not? Same thing with Keegan Kline, same thing with Tony Kline. There's still answers to be found. So, right now, one of the questions that has been popping up as if Richard Allen has anything to do with the Jorden Sopher unaliving. So this happened back in 2006. So this girl here, she had gone missing, and her remains were later found. I think it was, oh goodness, 3 years later. Let's take a look at this here, friends. Jorden Sopher had recently celebrated her 18th birthday when she disappeared after visiting her adoptive parents' home in Wabash, Indiana, on the morning of May 23rd, 2006. Pretty little girl. 3 years later, you betcha. So, the teen spoke very briefly with her dad, Robert Sopher, hugging him and telling him she loved him before walking down an alley behind the family's home. This was the last time she was ever seen alive, with police who have said they don't think that this is connected to the Delphi murders and Richard Allen. He is not a suspect at this point, but they are still investigating. So with that said, we are taking a look at Richard here, but Wabash is not too far from Peru either, and that would happen to be where the Klines lived. Okay, a search for her was launched, but as the days turned into weeks into months, without any sign of Jorden, her family, along with investigators, began to grow increasingly resigned to the fact that something terrible must have happened to her. So it was 3 years later when they found out where she ended up. A mushroom hunter was looking. When you're mushroom hunting, you got to get pretty down low to the ground, obviously. So this was a place near Peru, Indiana, and he found her skeletal remains. Her remains would again create more questions. Always more questions than answers. The Wabash Police Department began investigating Jorden's death as a homicide. However, her cause of death has never been determined, and few leads have been yielded in almost 14 years since. Her case all but faded until the arrest of Richard Allen last October. And he, as we know, was arrested on the deaths of Libby German and Abigail Williams. So Libby and Abby, and they had gone missing on the night of the 13th of February, and their remains were found the following day on Valentine's Day, sadly. So it says, after the apparent breakthrough in the case, which is known as the Delphi murders, investigators with WCPD were urged by members of the public to investigate Ellen as a potential suspect in Jorden's case. So Richard Allen worked for the CVS chain in Delphi, Indiana, although he had lived in Mexico, Indiana, and was there around the time of Jorden's disappearance. So his home was roughly 16 miles away from where Jorden was last seen, and about 14 miles from Peru, which is where the Klines were. And I believe the father still might be. Allen later moved from Mexico to Delphi in late 2006. So this just happens to be a few months after Jorden went missing. A spokesperson for WCPD told The Sun that they looked into any and all potential links that were could be between Richard Allen and Jorden. I was just thinking about those pictures. She really looks quite a bit like Abby, does she? Or sorry, like Libby, does she not? So again, they're saying here that they do not believe that he is linked to this case. It was something that was brought to our attention and is something we looked into, but we don't think there's a connection at this time. Not much has changed in the case, but the investigation remains open. So the department did decline to provide case files for Jordan's disappearance, citing an active and ongoing case. So Jorden was born, let me see if I can say this, Arnie Willis, and was adopted by Linda and Robert Sopher in 2004. She arrived on their doorstep 2 years previous after being removed from an abusive home in Peru. So she has connections to Peru as well. In an interview in 2007 with the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, Linda recalled how Jorden was uncertain, untrusting, and fearful of her when they first met, and that then 14-year-old would wake up in the middle of the night screaming from terrifying nightmares. But over time, Linda and Robert were able to gain her trust, and she did eventually get settled. So her adoption was finalized in August of 2004, and she began going to a private Christian school. A classmate of hers said that she is remembered as a sweet girl. I didn't know her that well, unfortunately, but from what I can remember, she was a sweet girl, and she was always nice to me and vice versa. I was shocked to hear she went missing, but I think she had already dropped out of school sometime before that. I remember rumors of her running away. A possible rumor was she was hanging out with people that were into drugs. So Jorden had dropped out of school in her junior year, but was planning on returning back to classes in the fall of 2006. Email records show that she had contacted the Wabash High School to ask about graduation requirements. She also told her mother she was interested in beauty college, and an entry she wrote in her journal indicated she was also considering a career with the U.S. Coast Guard. Quite a bit like Libby, wouldn't you say? There we go. A little bit older, quite a bit. Libby, and this is Abby, of course. And this is the Monon High Bridge, and it was just off of this trail that the girls were found on Valentine's back in 2017. So about a month before she disappeared, Jorden moved out from the Sophers' home after an argument with Linda. Linda had confronted her over an entry in her journal about a relationship she didn't approve of, and they got into an argument. Jorden just turned 18, told Linda she was now an adult and could do as she wished. She then moved out, living for a short time with family friends, and then she moved in with a friend of hers and a co-worker. So Jorden's roommate last saw her in the early hours of the morning on May 23rd, 2006, when Harlan woke her for work, according to the police. Harlan said Jorden told her she didn't have to work until later that day, so Harlan then left for work. When Harlan returned at 10:15 a.m., Jorden was gone. Sometime in the morning, she had arrived at her parents' home in a truck driven by Corey Bridenthal, who dropped her off and then left. Robert Sopher told police he had only spoken with Jorden briefly. She had been wanting to go on a motorcycle ride with him, but her father said he was unable to because he needed to take care of one of the foster children's doctor's appointments. So in the background, sorry guys, that is literally Jazzy wanting a treat. And she will sit there and sing and sing. So Bridenthal was never accused of wrongdoing in connection with her death. And he died in 2013. He was later questioned and told police after he dropped her off, he noticed that her cell was lying on the seat of his car. So he returned it, either handling it to Harlan at work or dropping it off at Jordan's apartment. A collection of her belongings remain in an evidence storage in lockup at WCPD's headquarters. So the investigation into Jordan's death is still ongoing. So what do you guys think after hearing a little bit about Jorden? Is there a possibility that she has also been a victim of the same people? And when I say people, I'm still convinced that there is, it's my own opinion, of course, that there is a Keegan-Kline connection in here somewhere. I could be wrong, of course, but it's kind of where I'm thinking. There he is, such a beauty, right? So is there going to be a connection to Alan? What do you guys think? Let me know down below. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.